here, and Rick is also, we have a vacancy now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the first item on our agenda is appointment consideration for Susan Sartori to the Financial Planning Committee. We all got a letter
Yeah,
listing her previous years of being, I think it was 7 years on the Financial Planning Committee, and then multiple years also on the school committees. So open it up for discussion. She couldn't be here tonight, so we can't actually talk to her, but.
I move that we appoint Susan Sartori as our representative for financial planning. I'm not sure that's quite the right way to put it.
Second?
Any further discussion? It would be nice if we could, do
See
this
her.
a little bit slower and actually, talk to her, et cetera. But considering that financial planning needs one more person to have a quorum so they can actually start doing their work, which we need to complete, I think recommending her based on her background would be ideal. So, all in favor? Okay. All right. We don't have minutes, right, to approve for last year? Okay. Turn it over to you, Scott, for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Sharper, Chair, Public Works Director. We have Jason Little here, our Finance Director, sitting at the table. I'm going to go through our project update. There's been a project update memorandum handed out to everyone, dated February 20th. It's kind of a broad brush overview of where we are with different projects in the town, whether they're ongoing or one-offs. A lot of these you've seen before. First one identified as our pavement management program. This is not new to anyone in the room, I don't believe. We have a pavement management program that we've been implementing since 2014. Every other year, our consultant drives every road in town and evaluates their conditions, puts together a large database, assigns grades to the condition of each road, averages those things all up, and comes up with a town-wide pavement condition index, PCI. Same thing as school grades. You get a 60, it's not so good. You get a 90, you're doing great. In our case, we're at a 76. We've been at a 76 for a few years now. Our pavement management program is funded through three mechanisms: $500,000 approximately from Chapter 90, $300,000 from the operating budget that we'll see here later this evening, and then another $300,000 out of the capital improvement plan that hopefully gets approved through town meeting and has been annually since it's been implemented. One of the struggles with improving our roadway condition index, our pavement condition index, is the value of the dollar. Isn't what it used to be. Like I just said, since 2014, we've been putting $1.1 million toward it. Well, it's 2024, it's 10 years later, and the dollar isn't the same as it used to be. So instead of gaining ground, where when we started in 2014, we were a PCI of 71, we made it to 76 and we plateaued. A couple of reasons for the plateau: the value of the dollar, like I said, isn't what it used to be, and we've diverted funds from the pavement management program toward emergency repairs and needs. For example, we had a culvert fail, Lincoln Street, big hole in the ground, we had to fix it. We just can't have a hole in the ground for an indefinite period of time, so you have to reallocate some funds. So our goal and objective every year is to touch 10% of our roadways. We have 80 miles of roads, so we want to touch about 8 miles of roads with our pavement management program. We take a wide-ranging approach to what we do. Some things are full reconstruction. This past year, we did full reconstruction on Weston Terrace and Leland Drive. We also did Thoreau and Emerson. Another approach is rubber crack seal we do, which is more of a surface membrane treatment. We did that on a portion of Howard Street, Brewer Street this past year. Another thing even further down the tier is crack seal and fog seal. Crack seal, you see the little black lines in the road, stops water from getting on the pavement. It's a good practice. That gets us a lot of miles, and it also does great for the pavement. It stops the water from getting in and deteriorating. This past year, we also tried something new, fog seal. We tried that in the summer school, Assabet, Beverly neighborhood there. And it's like a driveway sealant, except it's more robust and designed specifically for roadways. When you see a roadway change color from black to gray, that means the glue, the asphalt has been worn off, and the glue is what keeps it flexible. You got glue, you got rock, you got sand. When the glue wears off, the sand can't stick to the rock, the sand falls out from between the rocks, you get water in there, bada boom, bada bing, things start falling apart. So you put new glue on it, this fog seal, and it extends the longevity of the surface, of course. So that's the type of stuff we do. This coming year, we have a bonded wearing course proposed, which is a new treatment for Northborough, certainly not new to the industry. It is, you put a shim coat down, you put it on a roadway where the cross-section is still good. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm used to not being on mic when I'm in here. I'm sorry for pushing it away. So the bonded wearing course, you put a shim course down on a roadway that has good base, meaning it's not completely falling apart. Then you come in and you spray a glue-type material, and then you put a thin 1-inch layer of asphalt on top. So to the layperson, when you come home, it looks like we paved your road. It's not a full pavement. It's about half the price of a mill and overlay, but if the roadway is the right condition, it's a very cost-effective treatment. So we're gonna be doing that this year along with more conventional mill and overlays.
How long does that extend the life?
If you have positive drainage and good cross slope, you can get another decade out of the roadway with that.
Okay.
If you wait 5 more years, then all of a sudden you're doubling your costs and you're milling and overlaying it for the same longevity. We try to stay ahead of the game as best we can. Like we've always said, if we take this 1.1 million and just fix roads that are completely blown apart, we're gonna keep on getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. You don't wait until your engine explodes to replace your engine. You maybe replace your oil and your spark plugs, and you do all that stuff in the process to get some longevity out of your asset. Any questions on the pavement management other than?
Just in terms of the quality of the roads kind of thing, you said kind of our average, our grade is around a 76 kind of thing. What's the range?
It's 0 to 100, and if we paved every road tomorrow, in the morning, tomorrow night, we would have 100. In a couple months, we'd probably be 99.5.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering right now, like, if the average is 76, what's the worst road right now, and obviously the ones we've just treated should be up there close to 100, but
Yeah, we have,
where are we on the tail end kind of thing?
we have ones in the 30s.
30, ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
30s, and they're bad, and we're chipping away at them. We know there's a segment of road on Cedar Hill, right before you get into Marlboro. Marlboro got a MassWorks grant to reconstruct their section of Cedar Hill that goes all the way over to Seminaro Drive. They were not willing to engage Northborough in a regional MassWorks application, so that that 400 feet that's in Northborough could be part of that grant application. It would then provide at least visual continuity to the project, because, they did a MassWorks project, so it's wide pavement, it's, granite curbing, it's, full Mass DOT standard stuff. We don't have the resources for that. Because they chose not to involve us, we're doing it on our own, we're doing it the way we normally do roadways, full depth reconstruction. It's gonna be, a perfect roadway when it's done, but it's not gonna visually match what they did. So that would be something in the 30s. We've all driven that, it's horrible. But I didn't want to do that section of road until they finish theirs, because their trucks will be bouncing up on down. On our, we'll wait, they're done, we're gonna go in and do that.
Okay.
We also engaged in a sidewalk management plan a few years ago. So in 2022, we did a full townwide survey of all of our sidewalks. In a similar fashion as our pavement management program, it resulted in a sidewalk condition, as well as an inventory of all the sidewalks we have. It's a little bit different in the grading. It's more of a poor, fair, good and excellent, as opposed to, A, B, C's, and D's with schools. But it did give us an idea of what we have for sidewalk backlog, what the conditions are, and what the approaches are for replacement and the costs. There can be a wide range of costs. If you pull out an asphalt sidewalk with granite edging, and you put in asphalt sidewalk with asphalt curbing, the curbing is a tenth of the cost of granite. So, you know, when you start looking at your funding mechanism, you know, I can do $50,000 worth of asphalt curbing, which would cost me $500,000 if I did granite. So it's a helpful tool for me to see what we have. So as you see in the memorandum, we got about a little over $2 million with a backlog. These are on existing sidewalks that need replacement and repair. This is a replacement and repair in kind, so it's not proposing, you know, cement concrete sidewalks throughout town. After development of the sidewalk management plan, we did a ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, which included accessibility evaluations of all of our sidewalks and our wheelchair ramps. So one evaluated the condition of the sidewalk, the other one evaluated the accessibility component of it. Is there a mailbox that makes you not be able to get a wheelchair around it? Those two documents haven't come together yet. So we update our sidewalk management plan every other year, like we do our pavement management. So they're you know, opposing years, cycling years, so we have some balance in our funding. The next time we do the sidewalk management plan next year, we'll bring those two things together, have a better grasp of where we can spend dollars that improve both accessibility as well as condition. Of course, funding is always a struggle. We are a complete streets community, so when we do a full roadway reconstruction like we did on Emerson and Thoreau, we are committed to doing the sidewalks as well, which we did. Oh, complete streets, there we go. Segue. We are a complete streets community. We went through the process, the planning process with a Mass DOT grant, $35,200. That has been complete. We developed a prioritization plan, which involved a lot of public outreach, you know, online surveys, select board meetings. I know the planning board got involved, so there was quite a bit of public outreach. The idea of complete streets is not necessarily to fix what you have, but to identify opportunities for improvement. Are there locations where there's gaps in connectivity? The simplest one, Center Drive to the church on Hudson Street. When you come out of Center Drive, you walk down 5 feet of sidewalk, and then you're in the gutter line, because there's no sidewalk to get until you get to the church. Small gap, those things are identified, and they're critical to address. Complete Streets money's for that. Strange thing about, well, an anomaly about complete streets is they don't pay for design. They only pay for construction, and they cap it at $500,000 over a 5-year period. $500,000 is not a lot of money. When you're doing new construction, it goes a long way for repair, but new construction, not so much. The downtown revitalization project has culminated in a report with some recommendations. One of the approaches I believe we're going to take here is to utilize complete streets funding for downtown revitalization improvements. For example, when you want to walk, I don't know, from Cumbies down Blake Street to get over to the 3-1 Memorial, there's no sidewalk, there's like this weird sea of pavement, it's not very pedestrian friendly. Certainly, I mean, the kids can ride their bikes around there, but you know, my wife with a baby carriage, I don't think that's the safest place for them to walk. So making improvements like that, pedestrian scale improvements that make it a little more inviting to be a pedestrian, that's kind of the goal. Oh, something exciting, supervisory control and data acquisition. That's our SCADA project. So we received funding 3 town meetings ago to implement a SCADA system. So a SCADA system is a closed computer network system that offers monitoring, remote monitoring and controls for your water and sewer facilities. It's used a lot in treatment plants. Its use has since migrated into collection systems, most recently because of some security issues, cybersecurity in particular. So you can remotely monitor, all your alarms are on your phone, you can turn a pump on, turn a pump off, check your levels, reset transponders remotely and immediately. The first funding through town meeting accommodated about half of the project. And the second half of the project, we submitted a request through McGovern's office, Senator McGovern's office, and was awarded a $491,000 federal earmark in the FY '23 surplus budget. Requires a 20% match. We got $125,000 last year at town meeting for the match. The federal government, they don't move very quickly, like, at all. They're currently working on FY '22 earmarks, like getting contracts in place for that. So it's gonna be a while before this goes forward, but $500,000 of free money I won't say no to, and I will certainly wait 2 years for it if need be. The dam removal project. So Northborough owns a dam and a reservoir in Shrewsbury. It's on the Shrewsbury-Boylston line. If you go to Crawford Street, Reservoir Road, at the end of the reservoir, take a left and then your first right, and you're basically at the toe of the dam. The dam used to retain a reservoir for drinking water purposes for Northborough. We no longer drink that water, we drink the authority water. So we don't need the dam. The state's found the dam to be in poor condition, ordered us to either repair it or remove it. Repairing a large piece of infrastructure at a substantial cost that you don't want and don't need doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, removing the dam is an environmental benefit to the surrounding area. You know, you're restoring the land the way it used to be. It's a meandering brook, blah, blah, blah. It's a good environmental enhancement to the area. So, we've gone through the majority of the design, and we're in the permitting process. In the middle of the permitting process, the state decided to change their criteria for environmental impact reports. MEPA, the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency, oversees large projects. If you do a large project, you almost always have to do an environmental impact report, an EIR. It's a big document. A lot of money, a lot of time. We did not have to do that because we fell under an environmental enhancement project criterion. When they changed the laws at the beginning of last calendar year, the beginning of '23, if your project is located within 2 miles of an environmental justice community, you now automatically have to do an EIR. You're no longer allowed that exemption. So we were forced into the EIR process because of the regulatory change, and there is an EJ community in Shrewsbury. Environmental justice communities, if you don't know, are communities of disadvantaged or challenged communities. Not necessarily, financially disadvantaged, but they could be, language, there could be culture. There's a lot of different components to it, but they are a targeted group for help. So we're in that process now, that long and expensive and useless process. When that's done, we can get the rest of the permits in, the one that actually matter, and then seek construction funding through the same grant process that we did for design. 80% grant, 20% match. We'll go to town meeting, ask for the match out of the water fund because this is owned by the water division. And hopefully, before we retire, the dam will be gone. That's what I'm hoping. So the dog park is substantially complete with design. If you're familiar with the location, it's on Boundary Street. The roadway in that area is owned by Marlboro. It's the Marlboro section of Boundary Street. The property is owned by the town. We actually purchased it in the 60s with the intent of putting a sewer treatment plant there. Department of Public Health at the time said, you can't. You gotta go into Marlboro's treatment plant that they're gonna build. Hence the forced marriage. That's a whole nother topic. Regardless, we own this parcel of land. It's a great location for a dog park. The siting process was done, well vetted out, got funding for design. The design is nearly complete. The next step is to seek grant funding through the Stanton Foundation. They're the ones who provided some grant funding for design. They also support the construction side. I know that grant application has gone in. The planning director is the point person on this project. She has experience with dog parks at a couple of her prior employment locations, both successful and through the Stanton Foundation. So the expectation is we get a notification that the funding is available and awarded. Town meeting already allocated $347K for it. So bid it out in the spring, build this thing over the summer, get some grass growing in the fall, and let the dogs go have fun for Thanksgiving, I'm guessing. That's what I'm hoping. But the project is moving forward. Brigham Street Burial Ground, beautification project. That project is is substantially complete. The contractor owes us another overseeding of the area. We have some resources available in the appropriation. I want to talk to the Historic Commission to see if they're interested in trees. You know, we're planting some of the trees, or doing more of a visual identifier of where the historic burials are. So if you're standing on Brigham Street looking at it, all the burials are to the left and kind of to the back. You can see some markers there, some headstones, and there's some wolf stones on the ground. But that's where it all is. Most of it is open and not burials. Just so you're aware, when the funding was awarded, we then went out with our tree contractor that year. That tree contractor, the representative, the arborist there, came out and did us a favor and at no cost and evaluated the trees. When I went out there as the tree warden, I looked at them and said, my goodness, these trees are much worse than I expected, specifically the hemlocks. I'm a tree warden, I can tell you if a tree looks like it's a hazard. Is it potentially gonna fall because of some defects, holes in it, codominant leaders, things like that? As far as bugs and species and fungi and stuff like that, that's more of an arborist. And the hemlocks look really unhealthy. So they came out, the hemlocks were infested with this woolly fungus. It's terminal to the hemlocks. You can fix it if it's early. If you catch it early in its propagation, you can correct it. Once it's in, you can't fix it. That was found throughout almost all the hemlocks. And you can see, if you walk back to the end of the property where the hemlocks still are, just go and grab a little piece and Google it. You'll see exactly what he showed me on his phone. The oaks were like most of the oaks in town, unfortunately. 3 years of drought, 3 years of gypsy moths, killed any oak that was not really viable and stable and surrounded by other species. So a lot of the oaks went. So we ended up removing a lot of trees. Luckily, we have resources to replant trees if that's what the goal of the commission is. And the last project update is the Senior Center Trail, the accessible trail. We were appropriated funds at town meeting through CPA to build a wheelchair accessible trail at the senior center. It goes from the back patio down to the pond, all the way around the perimeter of the pond. There's a little spur that goes out on the peninsula. After it comes around the pond, it meets up with the Edmonds Hill Trail that goes up toward the cell tower. The wheelchair accessible trail then goes around the parking lot in the back where there was gonna be a frisbee golf, and I think there's like a old swing set or something back there. It's I don't forget the term, it's like a meadow, whatever. There's some meadow grass there that's desirable to walk through, I guess, I don't know. But it runs around there and then comes back to the front of the senior center. That project is completely designed, permitted, bid out. We received bids 2 weeks ago. The low bid came in within budget. The contractor is engaged, and I just received the first set of submittals. So the expectation is that they will be beginning their work soon, with, again, an opening, over the summer. One of the challenges we have, obviously, grass germination. I'd love to get two cycles. That's what we always require in our contracts. 2 growing seasons to make sure we have good germination. We're not going to catch the first one, so it'll be similar to the cemetery. Get something down in the fall, come back in the spring, rake out the ruts, and do it again. But our goal is to get this open. Labor Day, everybody's out walking around and can enjoy the walking trail. We did receive a $5,200 grant from the AARP for that project. I submitted a couple applications to them. Finally, they awarded it, so we're gonna have a couple benches installed along the route. The project doesn't include benches. We're gonna get 2 from AARP. There will be other bench pads available for donors in the event. We have a bench donor program that's run through the rec department. In the event somebody's looking to donate a bench, we have locations there. If not, town will just buy one and put one in. So that's our project update.
I had a question back on sidewalks. Isn't there a provision in the development, how, if you develop a housing development, that you contribute to a sidewalk fund? And my past information is that that was never terribly successful. I don't know whether there was enough money or the money wasn't put in, but does it still exist, and does it have any money in it?
I'm not familiar with that, Janice. I'll certainly.
I'm sure it's part of the subdivision plan,
Yeah,
and we did have a subdivision.
Yeah, no, and I'll reach out to.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with it?
I can try to answer that question. I know some time ago, there had been some sidewalk funds on the books. There's no authority under Mass General Law to carry a sidewalk fund on the books. So generally, any money that comes into the town, it belongs to the general fund. So, at one point, the sidewalk fund got closed out to free cash, and it was.
So I can't ask for the money back?
Well, you can ask for it. I don't know whether he needs to give it to you, but, order of magnitude, there's about $80,000 in the sidewalk fund at the time. So what a sidewalk fund generally is money that's paid because people have relaxed the sidewalk provisions in the subdivision bylaw.
Yes.
So in
One
exchange
side-
for that, people have paid the town a contribution in lieu of having to construct probably sidewalks.
One
that are more
sidewalk on
costly.
one side rather than both sides.
So I hope that answers your question, but there are
Thank
no
you.
funds sitting around for waiting to be used for sidewalks.
No pot.
Thanks.
I just have one question. What about the town center building? What's the status with that? I haven't heard much since we actually purchased that,
Yeah.
right back?
Yeah.
Yeah, do we know anything on that?
We have, we're the proud owners of 4 West Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
We have multiple tenants. One is a dentist on the first floor, left-hand side. The other one is cellular communication gear on the roof. We're in the process of transitioning all of the agreements for the tenants over to the town.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through the building, top to bottom, with our vendors, elevator, HVAC, roofing contractors walked it. It's fully insured by the town. We went through it with our insurance agent, made sure we addressed any concerns they had. There are some challenges with the property, as you can see, but we monitor it like we do all of our, I don't want to say vacant, but non-municipally occupied buildings. You know, we walk the entire building every week. We do the same thing with White Cliffs to confirm what the conditions are in there. So.
I've heard that the conditions are tough because the elevators don't work, things like that.
Yeah, the elevator is red tagged right now. We
Yeah.
need to have some repairs done on it.
So where does that get funded by? How does it get funded? I mean,
Right here.
right here.
Yeah, general
Okay.
fund. You'll see me when I get to
Okay.
facilities.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
We did, as part of our facility condition assessment
Mhm.
report that we put together,
Mhm.
the ARPA funds were allocated for us to do a full facility condition assessment.
Okay.
And it went through every single building. We had a consultant come in. They barcoded every single piece of equipment, every, air conditioning unit, heating unit, hot water tank, all that. Documented the make, model, serial number, age, approximate age if they didn't know. Have that in a huge database so we can monitor and manage in a proactive instead of reactive way, changing filters and belts and things like that. 4 West Main Street was part of that process, so we have a good handle on what the equipment needs are there going forward.
Okay, so is there a process where we're gonna decide what we're gonna do with the building, or is
Yeah.
there a committee or something? I heard?
We're working
Yeah.
with the town office feasibility study committee.
Okay.
They're looking at what to do with the town offices. They're considering multiple properties, rehabilitation of this building and
Right.
reconfiguration.
Okay,
4 West Main Street is another one we're considering. 11 Pierce Street, the current fire station, in the event the new fire station moves forward, that will be another vacant municipal property. And then White Cliffs, we remember when
White
White Cliffs, one of the alternatives during the original feasibility was a new town hall there.
So it's those four buildings that are part of the,
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, we're looking at it, and there's varying levels of complexity with each. You know, White Cliffs, most of the work is done with that because the prior consultant did it. It's just a matter of kind of moving things around with a little more detail, with a little more detailed data on what the departments require. This building, there's a challenge when it comes to phasing. You know, that's one of the big struggles. You've got continuity of government. We can't just, you know,
Mhm.
go home for 18 months and get the thing built. And then 4 West Main Street is a struggle, just geometrically. It looks huge on paper, 25,000 square feet, but 5,000 square feet of floor. And when you take out circulation hallways, egress, elevator, toilet rooms, out of your 5,000 square feet, you're looking at maybe 3,800 square feet. For one floor, for municipal services, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, you want to go to building and then go up the stairs to health and then go down the hall and up the other stairs to planning. That's not customer service oriented, you know, so. There's some challenges at each property, there always are. And then fire station property is still occupied by firemen.
Yeah, I heard that small little garage was sold. That was on the corner there. The old,
Oh, the old fire station?
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
With the
yeah.
little, yeah,
Yep, that's gonna be developed soon.
okay. What's that developing into?
They haven't presented yet to the planning board, but I know the proposal that was submitted was a mixed-use development,
Okay,
so mixed with residential and commercial.
okay.
It's
so
a nice parcel, the
it's-
same owner owns the Ellsworth house next to it and the
Okay.
old R&K behind it.
Yeah, so it's private now, private
Yeah.
property.
Yep. Bless you.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yep. Ready for budgets?
Sure.
Yeah? Excellent. So you have your budget packet in front of you. It's got the bold, I'm gonna skip past that first page. You can reference it as we go through the rest of it. But what I'm gonna truly focus on are the pages you see with the yellow highlights on the headers. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of everything.
Yellow highlights?
We don't have the yellow
Oh,
highlight.
you don't have yellow?
We have no yellow.
Yellow didn't come out in the
Yeah,
cut.
these were photocopied, so.
That's okay, we could pretend.
Do they look gray?
No,
The
How about the
landscape
page
ones, not
number?
the-
I have the pretty
page,
ones.
page one.
The page ones would be the landscape.
Okay, page 1, landscape, there we go. Thank you, Jason.
And this is literally how they print it out.
Yeah.
when you print the entire workbook.
Right. Excuse me, so the first one you have before you is the highway administration. We're proposing very minor changes here. There are some pieces that we transferred over facilities. You'll see a $14,500 in parentheses under building maintenance. It's a minus 52% on that line. We've transferred some of the maintenance operations and costs for the highway garage over to facilities.
Okay.
Last year, we created the facilities division, we kept the highway garage in highway. We found out it doesn't really make a lot of sense. We get economy of scale by putting HVAC vendors together, AC vendors together, you know, it's more logical. So no delta in the overall budget, just moved it from one pocket to another. If you go along to.
The decrease in utilities?
Yeah, so last year, you'll see, FY '23, we had $31,800 of expenditures for utilities, and then the next year, we had $61,800 budgeted, so this fiscal year. If you remember, the news was like blowing up about how gas and electric bills were gonna go through the roof, 50, 60% increases. Well, I listened, we increased the budget, 50, 60% for the utilities, never realized it.
Okay.
You know, when I'm looking through my budget for preparation of FY '25, the one we're sitting here tonight to talk about, we reduced that back down because it never materialized as bad as they projected it, so, which is good news. I'm happy to see
Yeah.
that. The next, so on page 6, you'll see highway construction and maintenance. Oh, is it page
Yeah.
3? Yeah, I'm sorry, page 3.
Page 3.
Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Same landscape format. This, we have a few additions and some postponements in. First, the first line you'll see is labor wages. Typical labor wages go up. We have 2 light equipment operators on staff right now. The need for a light equipment operator is very low. My preference with our employees is to have versatility. You know, we're a lean group, we don't have a lot of staff. The way we run things is not, you know, laborers pick up shovels, you know, light equipment operators drive pickup trucks, heavy equipment operators drive big trucks. We're tight staffs that we need everybody to be able to do anything. Our light equipment operators, they came up through the ranks, they started out as seasonal employees, they came on board as full-time light equipment operators. If you think about it, you're 18 years old, doing seasonal work, you become 20, you say, I want to do this full-time. 20, 21-year-old young person may not want to jump into a 40,000-pound Mack truck and start plowing between Hondas and Civics all day long. And it can take a while for them to be acclimated enough to drive a big truck. They're getting older. I want them to have CDLs. They've expressed interest in getting the CDL. That's the difference between a light equipment operator and a heavy equipment operator. They can drive a big truck. They have a commercial driver's license. So we've budgeted for one of the 2 of them to get promoted into a heavy equipment operator position in the event they so choose and seek out their licensure. Long-term, I would like to have all heavy equipments. That's what we had 10 years ago. The light equipments were created in order to allow a position for a seasonal person to grow into. The light equipment positions won't be eliminated, they're still in the contract. In the event somebody wants to better themselves, we need to have the money to be able to promote that. The next line, it's entitled Wages, Part-Time Permanent, kind of a weird term. That's for our admin staff. So our administrative staff in Public Works is broke out amongst 3 divisions. Half of their salaries go toward the general fund under highway. The other half goes toward the enterprise funds. 60% of the other half, or 30%, goes toward water. 40% of the other half, or 20% of the total, goes to sewer. That's why it's kind of a weird layout.
It's a full-time position.
Full-time position. We're adding a full-time, we're proposing to add a full-time administrative staff member to the Public Works Department. So over the past couple years, some things have changed. You're all aware that we've created a facilities division. The facilities division took a lot of work out of the town administrator's office, brought it down to the Public Works Department. We have a facility manager who does that. It brought everything we've discussed so far, and you'll see in the facilities budget how extensive that department is, that division is. There is no administrative support for that. We have the 2 admins that we had 15 years ago, when things were a lot different. We've brought in the streetlights. The DPW's taken on the streetlights. You've watched some of the meetings we've had. Public Works is getting involved in everything, town offices, fire state, like the facilities department. There's a wide range of things we get involved in. Solid waste is homeless right now. Solid waste used to be managed by the engineering department. Well, we don't have a town engineer anymore. We have an assistant DPW director. Solid waste is coming over to Public Works. It can come over fully to Public Works when we have a full-time admin who can accommodate those services. Right now, Public Works manages the contractual pieces for solid waste. So we negotiate the contracts for collection, disposal, recycling, processing. We manage the applications for grants, the Household Hazardous Waste Day, all that contractual stuff we do. The phone calls, the residents' concerns, the coordination of delays for snow and things like that, that goes to another department to answer phones and send out emails. So there's a communication disconnect there, which 1, makes it difficult internally for us to provide a quality service to the residents, and 2, doesn't provide a quality service to the residents, I don't think. So the goal is to bring all of solid waste under Public Works. So when people call up, they know who to talk to. So the new administrative position would handle all of solid waste. Facilities, streetlights, and periodic projects. So I'm involved in the town office feasibility study committee. That involves postings, minutes, invites for Zoom, all that stuff. I'm currently doing that. I need an admin help for these ad hoc committees that come up and then dissipate. So that's the goal. In order to accommodate that, as we go through the budget, you'll see things that we've cut and postponed. So the financial impact has been reduced on the taxpayer. One of the things we cut, you'll see further down, is a $25,000 deduct, or, in parentheses, under roadway maintenance. So our roadway maintenance budget includes, obviously, our $300,000 of paving I talked about earlier, catch basins and manholes and things like that, and guardrail replacement. We have a $25,000 line item where we do guardrail replacement every year. We did some on Crawford Street last year, we did some on Ridge the year before, blah, blah, blah. We have a town-wide guardrail inventory, we know what we have, what it is, where it is, and what condition it's in. Our approach is to replace what's broken and non-compliant first before we start installing new. There's a level of responsibility we have. If we have a guardrail and we know it's broken, then we fix it before we go put a new one in someplace else. So we're proposing to postpone that program this year, 1 year. We postponed it previously when COVID hit and we slashed the budgets left and right. Other than that, it's been a successful project. There are years that we skip and do 2 cycles in 1 year, just for efficiency of cost. If we have a long stretch, doesn't make any sense to have a guy come out, do half of it 1 year, then half the next year. So we just do it, 2 fiscal years and get it done. But we're proposing to postpone that for a year in order to alleviate some of the expenditures. The next one you see is stormwater, an increase of $12,000. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Culverts would be under road maintenance too?
Yeah.
Okay, and how are we doing on the culverts? Just
Not
out of
good.
Not good, so we're falling behind again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we found, right after we had a huge rain event, when was it, in January, I think, or was it in January? I think it was in January.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had a massive rain event, flooding was all over the place.
Right.
We had a culvert wash out at Howard Street, right between the Howard Street Cemetery and the Kaiser Cemetery.
Okay.
When you drive through, there's like there's a little sidewalk with a pipe rail, handrail on it. There's a culvert there, you see a big roadway patch on the inbound side. Culvert failed, apparently somebody in the past, there's a large steel bolted plate culvert that somebody decided it'd be a good idea to take a smaller, oh, thank you, my foaming.
I'm the only one talking, so I figured you'd dry out eventually.
Thank you. Somebody decided it'd be a good idea to take a big high-density polyethylene pipe of smaller diameter and stick it in the big one, which doesn't work well. If you're gonna do that, you should put it over it, so the flow goes through it, not in it, so the flow goes into it. So anyway, it failed. So
Yeah.
we had to dig up the road, it needs to be replaced.
Okay.
We don't have funds for it right now. The last thing on the highway C&M that you'll see is a $12,000 increase under stormwater. So stormwater includes several things. One in particular is disposal of catch basin cleanings and street sweepings. The cost of that, it shocks me. We have $120,000 in the operating budget to get rid of catch basin cleanings and street sweepings every year. They're contaminated materials. They cannot just be dumped. You can't just spread it on the side of the road and seed it. It has to be managed by a licensed site professional, an LSP, and go to an approved disposal facility. The disposal facilities are getting fewer and fewer and fewer and further between. Last year, we paid $50 a ton, roughly, to dispose of this material. This year, it was $112 a ton. Proximity is what's killing us. Where it's gonna go next year, I don't know, but I can't see it going up more. I don't know how it can. How can you pay more than $112 a ton to dump something into a landfill? And they can use it as intermediate cap material in a landfill. They can't use it as primary cap or or substrate where they can use an intermediate cap, but I don't, it's a challenge. But they're actual numbers, this is based on actual numbers. So the next one, after CM, is snow and ice, which should be a relatively light lift because we're not proposing any changes. We're right about where our rolling 5-year average is. Our rolling 5-year average is about 470. We're proposing a budget, a level funded budget of 459. This year actually is gonna be a little better than projected, I think, just seasonally. Knock on wood. Right now, we have the same amount of snow as we did all of last year, but snow isn't that expensive. Ice kills us. Ice is incredibly expensive. It costs us about $7,500 every time we drive around town with salt. That's based on overtime. And a regular ice event, you know, it rains, it sprinkles, it stays iced over, not like an ice storm. A regular ice event, we'll drive around 4 times. That's $7,500 each. It doesn't take a lot of those to eat up the budget. So I like 8 inches of snow and then it's over. You push it, you salt it, it's done, you don't gotta worry about it anymore. These events, this climate change events we're getting are very costly, and they're not, it's hard to justify to the general resident that says, I didn't have to, my snow blower only fired up twice, I just spent $500,000. I said, well, I put down, 6,000 tons of salt, so that's $60 a ton, so. But it's level funded this year. And streetlights, same story. Do you want me to talk any more about streetlights, Jim?
I think the committee knows that we're trying to change to LED lights, and we'll do that. We're just gonna keep the budget, oh, I broke something, level funded for next fiscal, and it'll just go to the fund balance and become free cash if we can do it earlier. We'll have more flexibility, but I don't think we get those changed before the beginning of the fiscal.
No, and one of the challenges with LED streetlight conversion program, right now, a lot of communities are changing over, choosing to go 4K, the 4K lights to the 3K lights. They're a little softer lighting, but there's a supply issue. Southborough did a test. Route 85 over Route 9, that intersection, if you head toward Route 30, so if you're going eastbound and you go left on 85, so to speak, there's a long causeway, like a straightaway.
Yeah.
You drive down there at night, you'll see the difference between 3K and 4K. They got like 4 4Ks and 4 3Ks right in a row, and it's a pretty substantial difference. They waited like 3 months just to get, I think they got like 20 lights, and they did periodic tests for the 4Ks. So it's quite a long lead item, and we have 780 lights. So, like Tim indicated, we pull the trigger after things calm down after town meeting in May. They may not be all installed until the next May. We don't know how long it takes to get those materials. So level funding it, I think, is the safest thing to do.
Is there a big rush for this, or is there a mandate, or what's?
No mandate, just save money. We're spending $165,000 a year on streetlights, and the comps are all over the place on what you can save, but it's a substantial savings, and all of our peers are either have done it, or are doing it, or will be doing it.
Okay.
So it's a good
It's
program.
probably 100,000 worth of savings annually.
From the 165?
Yeah, so you'll be, to maintenance and insure the lights, you'll still pay 60, but you'll save the 100,
Okay,
be able to reapply someplace else.
sounds good.
So page 11 is the cemetery division. There are not a lot of changes proposed. You'll see the labor goes up a bit. We have one seasonal employee budgeted in here. That's where you see the $1,800 increase. Keeping seasonal employees is a challenge. You'll see when we get to parks, they need to get raises. So we're proposing a raise to the seasonal help to try to attract a little more. Well, stop me from having to beg people to work for us. I want to at least pay 10 cents more than Wegmans does to bag goods, because they're going to be working hard for us. So the other thing you'll see is a $2,650 increase under materials and supplies. That is to support maintenance of the Brigham Street burial ground. We have a pretty robust flower program in town. We spend a few $1,000s a year on flowers, specifically around Memorial Day and then again for the 4th of July. It's a beautiful, one of our beautiful grounds. We should be dressing it up appropriately, as we do with our memorials and our monuments. In addition, it needs fertilizer. You know, not everybody does, you know, True Green or any programs at their homes, but these facilities need it. We don't have irrigation at these facilities. They need to be properly treated. If not, it's just gonna be weeds and you know, disrespectful to say the least. Next is trees, which is page 14, sorry. There are no proposed changes in trees. Put it in perspective, we have the vast majority of the budget is allocated to contractual services. We bid out our tree contractors' work every year to get competent quotes from quality companies. We utilize our contractor for trees that we can't do. So we tag and identify and have a public hearing for public shade trees, 50, 60 a year. After they're all approved, I have my tree supervisor come out, look at every single tree, tell me what trees he is not comfortable doing. And I'm not gonna have him do a tree that he's not comfortable working on. That's just poor business. So we have a contractor that comes in. The vast majority of the trees the contractor works on are not pleasant ones. You're familiar. They generally need cranes. You know, we can do a lot with our bucket. Our tree foreman is a very talented man. He's a great roper, but we don't climb, and we don't have a crane. So the majority of this money goes toward cranes. A crane day is about $15,000. You get 10 grand for the crane, about $5,000 for the chipper truck for the brush, and a log truck. $15,000 for a crane, you get maybe 3 mobs in a day, so you can get 3 trees, $5,000 a tree. So when you do the math, we've got $65,000, that 12, 15 trees, the rest we do. Some towns do it a lot differently. We happen to be lucky to have a very competent tree foreman who's comfortable with doing more than a lot of just general employees would do, so. Next is page 16, parks. You'll see on the labor section, the top, a $6,000 increase. Again, that is providing attractive pay to our 5 seasonal employees we bring in. Our goal is to get 5 seasonal employees. The vast majority of their work is mowing, weed whacking, blowing, and trash. Trash is an everyday job, sometimes twice a day at our facilities. It's a blessing that our residents see the trash barrels and use them. That keeps us from picking them up out of the woods, but we still have to empty the barrels. So they're busy with that. In addition to that, you'll see a increase to the mulch price. You'll see an increase to the materials and supplies, $4,700. And the majority of that is attributed to potential dog park.
Potential what?
Dog park.
Okay.
A portion of that is for the town common. So the town common, we installed irrigation last year. You may have seen that through some of the select board meetings. The town common was has been irrigated and also has uplighting for the trees. That was funded through the select board's allocation for ARPA money. Both of those components require maintenance contracts. You need to maintain your irrigation system, you have to blow it out, you have to adjust heads, repair heads. The lights, they go. You need them to come in and adjust the lights, repair the lights. The light module, the controller itself is a Wi-Fi controller, so we have Wi-Fi service there. There's costs associated with that. We're engaging the same vendor who did both the installations in order to do the maintenance contracts with them. It's great because there's none of this. I'm pointing my, I'm on camera, never mind, sorry. And he did the lights and the irrigation, so he knows where the wires are, he knows where the tubes are, so I'm very happy that he's also providing the maintenance contract for us. In order, again, to ease the burden on the taxpayers for what we've talked about additions, we've reduced the repairs and maintenance number by $2,300. We have a periodic, in the operating budget, grounds improvements line item to do something. Things need to be repaired. We rebuilt the Ellsworth McAfee Memorial at the flagpole at Ellsworth a few years ago. That came out of here. There are improvements at the Assabet Park splash pad we did here, which included the surface coating, additional benches and tables, periodic improvements to physical components of the parks that need to be upgraded. Some of the memorials, this would fall into some of the memorials as well. The Three-Will Memorial, you saw that we rebuilt that a few years ago. These funds were allocated toward that. There is a 9/11 memorial at the corner of Church and Lower Pleasant. That's the type of location, not that we would do that because it's likely to be relocated when the new fire station comes, but a memorial like that that's old, could use a facelift, that's what this is for. We're postponing it for a year. Next on page 19 is engineering. Well, we've shifted the town engineer position, the funding for it, to the assistant DPW director, which is, it's, like I said earlier, it's from one pocket to another. There's no delta as far as the taxes go, but you'll see a giant minus, and it's negative $124,000. That's just because it went into another category. You will see an increase in the first item, contractual services, by $10,000. We now have a traffic safety committee. Traffic safety committee is gonna warrant consideration of some engineering services. For example, they recently provided direction on 2 prospective heavy commercial vehicle exclusions, truck exclusions. Resident came to the traffic safety committee, said, I want a truck exclusion on Summer Street. Traffic safety committee said, okay. I said, we need to do an engineering report on it. You have to do traffic counts, intersection analysis, and the like, and prepare a report in order for it to be considered. Those reports are $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 each. So we did the report. It found that it would meet the criteria, but the committee did not recommend it to be implemented because of some geometric issues at South Street and Route 20. So if you had a truck exclusion on Summer Street, and you got a tractor trailer that's coming up South Street, and he's sitting at the light looking at 4 West Main, and he wants to take a right, he's got to scooch over to the left lane a little bit, which is also a left turn lane, and then loop around wide and possibly get into the left turn lane from Main Street, trying to get onto South Street in order to go around the corner where it's a tight corner. One tractor trailer driver who is not almost perfect is gonna booger up both left turn lanes on South Street and the left turn lane on Main Street with no way to get out of that hole. Like, he would literally be stuck there. It's not a good option. So that was not recommended to go forward. This coming year, I expect Lincoln Street and Pleasant Street to be considered for truck exclusion. That's a different story. If you run into your GPS and you want to go from Times Square to 290, that's the way it sends you. Take a left on Lincoln. If you come off of 290 on Church and you say, I want to go to Nicky D's, it sends you down Pleasant, Upper Pleasant to Lincoln Street. That's where trucks are going. We have relationships with the local trucking companies. We talk to them and remind them, please have your drivers use the intersection, the state highway at Church Street. These adjunct drivers and gypsy drivers, we don't have any way to communicate with them. So that's probably a viable solution. We do have 2 schools. In the summertime when the schools aren't in session, there are recreation programs that actually walk between Lincoln Elementary, Lincoln Elementary, and Melican. So, you know, I'm in favor of whatever keeps the schools safe, so I think it's a good opportunity. But I expect that one to come around next year. Long discussion about 10,000, sorry.
It's okay.
Yep.
Should I presume that the assistant director is a PE,
She is a civil engineer, has not
but
received her
not a
PE yet.
has she passed her licensing exam?
She's passed her EIT, I think it's called a,
Yeah, engineer in training.
yeah, it used to be an EIT when we were doing it, it's something else now, but yes, she's, the EIT, yes, not a PE yet.
Okay, is she intending to become one?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
I would strongly
I
encourage it.
asked one of the town engineers that, and he wasn't a professional engineer, and I.
Huh. I got the wrong title, maybe a lowercase e.
Yeah, yeah.
So, next, which I believe is the last general fund, is facilities, which will be on page 21. Yeah, page 21. So, you'll see a substantial increase in facilities this year. Some of it is attributed to reallocation from highway admin to facilities. That was $14,500 of it. I discussed that in the first highway admin discussion. And the remainder of it is either associated with actual cost increases when it comes to utilities and maintenance contracts, but the majority of the extra is 4 West Main Street. So we now own 4 West Main Street. We've added to our HVAC maintenance contract, 4 West Main Street. We've added insurance, the insurance cost for 4 West Main Street. We've added all their utilities as well. So one of the challenges we have budgeting right now for facilities is we don't know what the revenue stream is. We're still working out those leases between all the tenants. I don't know, we don't have the capacity to project that right now in time for town meeting. Maybe it'll fall out of the sky and everything comes together perfectly. The prior owner hasn't been forthcoming with information as much as we would like them to. So we're kind of gathering it just haphazardly, like literally going up on the roof and looking at the equipment and trying to find a 1-800 number to call and say, you guys have this? Is this yours? So without projecting what the revenue is coming in, it's hard to figure out where to budget it. But I'd rather be safe and have it in there and not need it than it just goes back into the free cash and we have to worry about it, so.
Okay.
That's all for the general fund. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, please, yes.
There will be an article at town meeting, but contrary to what I said to Janice about the sidewalk fund, where there's no Mass General Law authorization to hold it out of the general fund, there is one for rental property, renting town buildings. There's the authority that we have under, I think it's, if I'm getting the citation right, it's chapter 40, section 3, that allows the town to take the rental income and pay for upkeep of the same building with that fund from it. And we're planning to do that, and like Scott said, we're trying to figure out what the leases are with the cell carriers that are on the building. There's a dentist office in the building that's paying that. So, right now, we're planning to pay upkeep expenses from that fund. There will be an article at town meeting that there's a local option that would allow us to continue. The law is that whatever's in the fund at the end of the fiscal year closes out to the general fund, and the article would allow us to carry the money forward in a revolving fund to pay for continued upkeep of the building.
What do you say?
If that helps.
It does.
Good luck.
It helps me. Oh, solid waste, I'm sorry. I went to water first. Do you want to go in the order of your packet or the order of the agenda, Mr. Chairman?
The order of the packet makes sense to me.
Okay. because water's the next one,
Sure.
Yeah.
24.
which would be page 24. So water, you'll see a substantial 5% increase. Again, that new administrative position, 30% of that salary comes out of the Water Enterprise Fund, 50 general, 20 sewer. So that's one piece of this. The largest component of this is the MWRA. When you look down on the amount change column, you'll see $77,738. That's the amount of the preliminary assessment increase that we received from the MWRA yesterday. It's a 5.3% increase. It's a big increase. The MWRA accounts for half of our budget. You know, our budget's about 3 million to 2.9, and the MWRA is 1.5, half our budget. The challenge with the MWRA, in order to balance their undulations, for every dollar we cut out of the budget, it only saves us like 50 cents, because the MWRA you can't cut. So you're, fighting yourself, basically trying to reduce expenditures. How the MWRA works is they assess each community based on last year's use. So we typically use about 0.5% of the authority's water. The city of Boston uses about 1/3. So if the city of Boston decides that they want to, drink water and water their lawns all day, every day, their percentage goes up, our percentage goes down, then our assessment goes down. If the authority does, if Boston doesn't use a lot of water, the inverse occurs. So when, for example, we sat here discussing this in 2020 when the pandemic hit, Boston closed. They weren't using any water. Everybody came home. We were using a bucket load of water. So our assessment went up $360,000, $360,000 in 1 year. It was crippling to a lot of communities, not ours. We're financially stable. We have a good structure. We're conservative with our funds, fund balances, expenditures, and budgets. So we weathered the storm well. We never actually fell below our goals for fund balance of 20% operating budget. The next year, our assessment went down by over $200,000. So it went up 3-something, came down 2-something, just based because Boston opened up again. So I just wanted to give some context to how we got a 5% increase. MWRA went up 5%, we're up 5%. The other half of the increase, if you look on the top of the Water Enterprise Fund, is $69,000 for labor. So it's contractual increases, a third of an admin, and the authority. That's basically it. We did, in order to provide some rate relief, we postponed our hydrant replacement program for $25,000. You'll see there's a negative $25,000 right underneath the 77. We have a hydrant replacement program we have been implementing for a number of years. We typically cycle our way through it. We'll buy $25,000 worth of hydrants 1 year and then hire somebody to put them in the ground the next year for $25,000 and kind of cycle through that. Doesn't make a lot of sense to buy, 6 hydrants and have some guy do 6 hydrants. It's better off just buying 1,000, have them come out and do 12. It's more cost effective. So we'll postpone it for a year and we'll get back into it next year. We did the same thing when COVID hit. We postponed the hydrant replacement program. Our hydrants are in good shape. If there's a hydrant that's bagged and tagged by the fire department because it doesn't work, we'll fix it. We'll replace it. We have hydrants in stock. We have the skills to do it. We don't have the bandwidth to do 12 hydrants. We just don't do that. We have maintenance operations we need to complete. But part of that is a broken hydrant, we fix it. So it's not like there's gonna be a stack of hydrants with bags on them that say they don't work. We'll replace them if they're broken. This program is to replace old, aging infrastructure that is at the end of its life. It's 75 years old, it's time to replace it. Any questions on water?
The MWRA increase is because Northborough increased its usage?
No, we didn't increase our usage at all. It was other communities using less water. We had a very wet summer,
Mhm.
and last year was similar. We haven't had a dry year in a few years. Our usage fluctuates much less on precipitation than some of the other communities. Particularly as you go further east, there's, irrigation systems are much more prevalent there. They just, if they don't need the water, they don't use it. There's provisions in some of the communities that require rain gauge controls on your irrigation. Nothing, I mean, it drives me nuts when I drive down the road, and I live in Grafton, there's a guy he waters his lawn, it doesn't matter, it could be pouring rain out, his sprinklers are still on. But baffles me. But some communities require you to have a rain gauge control on your irrigation system in order to reduce consumption. That's generally, the Wellesleys, the Newtons, things like that. So that's what
Okay,
the
so,
proposal is.
so basically it was, with this one, because the way it's allocated is the percentage you used versus what everyone else used, and because others dropped, it's not that we increased our water usage, it's that other communities dropped, and
Right.
therefore our percentage of the total bill was a bigger chunk.
Yep, exactly, our share went up. Yep,
Okay.
exactly. The next enterprise fund we have in your packet is on page 30. It's the sewer enterprise fund. When you saw 5% and said, oh my goodness, you will say it again when you see the sewer. Sewer enterprise fund has a proposed increase this fiscal year of $252,227. That's a 10.1% increase. The entirety of that is contributed to Marlboro. The Marlboro FY24 budget and backwards to FY16 were all estimated Marlboro assessments. There's a long history with Marlboro. I'm not gonna go through the entire long, drawn-out history. I'll let you know, just a cliff notes. We're in litigation. 2015, they stopped billing us the way they always had for the prior 45 years. They started billing us in an arbitrary and capricious fashion. We did not have anything to base our budgets on for what the real bills should be. So we increased the budget, their budget item. So in FY15, it was 550, let's say. 16, they gave us arbitrary and capricious bills, so we increased it 5%. And the next year, 10. And the next year, 10. And then kept on rolling along with all these estimates through this litigation process. And in the backup of my spreadsheet, you'll see, 5%, 10%, 10%, 10%, all these increases. We're close, I think, to culmination of something in litigation. And part of that process has been deriving what we believe is a fair and equitable assessment to Northborough from Marlborough. So our 5s and 10s, trying to catch up, didn't catch up. So last year's, this current fiscal year's budget for Marlborough was $939,000. We're estimating FY25 to be 1.3 million. There's several reasons for that. One being the prior intermunicipal agreement did not define in great detail what portions of their operating expenses are shared between us and them. And they underutilized their outside resources for charging us. So, for example, healthcare. When you look through our enterprise fund budgets, we have the water and sewer operators' healthcare costs, because that's part of the enterprise fund. Marlboro doesn't operate as an enterprise fund, so everything's buried in their general fund. Their accounting is very messy, and it's hard to pull things out. The litigation process has provided us and them a mechanism to pull those things out. So we've been able to capture some things that are rightfully and justifiably associated with the treatment plant. Hence it going from 9-something to 1.3. Is it gonna land at 1.3? I don't know. I'm pretty conservative, so I don't want us to be short. I don't see it coming in at, last year was 939, I don't see it coming in at 940 this year. So I'd rather be conservative and then address it later with some, rate relief. Hopefully, knock on wood, that happens, but I'd rather be conservative. In order to try to alleviate some of the rate impact, we made some adjustments. There was a deduct right below the 360 of $46,154. We're postponing our grinder cartridge replacements. The majority of our pump stations, there's 6 that have grinder cartridges. It's like a garbage disposal for a sewer pipe. You gotta replace these things periodically because the teeth wear out. They're grinding up some very corrosive material, and we're gonna postpone that for a year. We can manage without it, it's okay, it's just, it's gonna get postponed. There's another negative $10,766, postponing some smaller purchases and items. We went through our inventory and saw we have X, Y, Z, we don't need to buy X and Y, we'll just buy Z. We reduced the legal costs by $40,000 below that. You'll see the $40,000 in parentheses. If it's settlement, if we're settled, I don't think we're gonna need $50,000 in town council services. Go back down to, that's something reasonable, maybe 10, 5, something like that. And then we always have a reserve in our operating budget under water and sewer enterprise funds. We carry $75,000 in each one in case there's an emergency. One year we had a large water break in Route 20 at Brigham Street, a complete fiasco. We had the $75,000 in the water operating budget for emergencies. It went toward that. That's what this money's for. In the event something catastrophic happens, we have it in the reserves. We're proposing to reduce that to $25,000 as opposed to $70,000 for 1 year in order to give a little bit of a rate relief. In the event a catastrophe happened, and we don't need the $1.3 million, there's money there. So I'm comfortable and confident that we're gonna be okay.
So you're looking at the litigation being settled in the next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Whether it gets settled and stops, I hope. I don't know. I'll appeal to your good nature. Hope that they do. So the last enterprise fund, I guess we're going in order of fiscal pain. We went from 5% to 10%. Now let's go to the page 35, which should be an eye-opening 24.2%. So there are some easy things to discuss here relatively quickly. There's an increase in the first line of $27,700. That is attributed to yard waste, primarily yard waste. We just drive by the highway garage, you see the pile of brush and the pile of leaves we have there. We dispose of that twice a year. None of that material is allowed to have a birthday at the highway garage. If it has a birthday there, it's in violation of DEP's regulations. It's considered a dump, a solid waste dump, for a leaf and brush dump, and it's not permitted for that. So it cannot have a birthday there. It has to leave every year. We have it removed twice a year because we don't have enough room there. You go by there in the fall and it's everywhere. The costs have been going up. They're not going down. Every year, it seems that we spend more and more and more on leaves and brush. So to put it in perspective, FY '22, we spent $102,000. FY '23, we spent $125,000. FY '24, which we're in, and we have finished, we spent $149,000. So we're budgeting $125,000. Maybe we won't have as many sticks fall out of the trees, maybe they're done falling, I don't know. It's exhaustive how much money we spend. If you add this one, 125 here, and the 120 we just talked about, I mean, you have $250,000 a year on emptying out a quarter of an acre twice. It's mind-boggling how we spend that much money on that. But that's what the costs are. We competitively bid it out every single year. We pair the bids so that There's an economy of scale, so when you have a trucking company coming in with trailer dumps left and right, left and right, left and right, and a machine loading them, they go right from leaves, brush, catch basin, street sweeping, logs, and then they go away. It's not like I got one guy coming in to do this, and then they go away, and the other one comes in to do that. It saved us a little bit, but it all goes into the trucking and disposal, and not a lot of places want brush anymore. Leaves are still viable, you can compost those easily. Brush, they don't want it so much, and it's hard to get rid of. There's not a lot of use for it, unfortunately. That's the easy part of this. The challenging part, I guess, would be the collection and disposal, where you see the collection, the second line going up 103,000, and the disposal going up 121,000. The disposal is two things. We'll go through the collection first. This is our last year of a contract with our current collection contractor, Republic Services. This fiscal year budget for collection is $621,000, or $627.95. $621,000. We solicited quotes for collection services. Now, solid waste is procurement exempt. It's exempt from procurement. We want to make sure our taxpayers and our bag buyers, get a good bang for their buck, and we're cost conscious of what we're doing. So we solicited quotes from every collection company around that responded to our first solicitation, and then some. The high number came in a little over 800,000 to collect. Again, it was 621 this year. So 800,000 was the high. The low was 724. So that's what we're carrying here, $724,000 for collection. One of the challenges we have in town with collection, our current contractor collects it by hand. They get out of the truck, they grab the green bag, they throw it in the truck, they go about their business. They get out of the truck, they grab the blue bin, they dump it in the truck, they go about their business. A lot of contractors don't want to, collection contractors don't want to do that anymore. It's a safety concern they have for their employees. The current contractor, we haven't had a fatality occur with one of their drivers. Not in Northborough, but that was a bit of an eye-opener for the company. They're migrating completely away from manual collection and going with mechanical collection only. Big bins, machine comes out with the ounce, picks it up, dumps it, both in trash as well as recycling. A lot of companies are doing that, especially the bigger ones. Two of the other companies that we solicited prices from said, we'll do manual collection for 1 year, but you have to commit to 4 more years of automated. We're talking about transitioning to automated with some other changes to the program, possibly. There's a lot to consider when it comes to automation. One, there's a huge expense with the totes. They don't give those to you for nothing. They're either built into the contract or you go buy them off a state bid list. They're expensive. We got 4,000 plus or minus households we tend to. Those big 96 gallons times 2 of them, trash and recycling, that's a lot of money. Second, one of my concerns is the quality of recyclable material. We have a contractor that gets out of a truck, picks up a blue bin, looks in it. If it's not acceptable material, it puts a sticker on it, a little naughty sticker on it, and doesn't collect it. If it's good stuff, he throws it in the truck. Our materials go to a processing facility. The value of your material is based on the quality of it. Shocking. Good stuff gets better value. So our recyclable materials are very high quality. There's not a lot of contamination in it. Not a lot of plastic shopping bags, not a lot of peanut butter covered tubs or anything, because the driver's conscious of it. When you have a big bin that nobody sees and nobody looks in, I don't know, I got a personal concern that somebody's gonna throw a carburetor in there or something. And then the load's contaminated. And then all of a sudden, instead of paying $105 a ton, you pay $220 a ton for that load because somebody threw a carburetor in there. I worry about that. So there's a lot to consider before you just kind of pull the trigger and say, let's just do it. The 724 contractor is a smaller contractor. He has the equipment for manual collection. It's a big capital investment for a small mom and pop business to buy new trucks. They're $1.5 million, $2 million each, especially when you get the arms and the lasers and the cameras and all the new stuff. I think it's a good match for us while we consider transitioning. And it was the lowest price, so what are you gonna do? The next item that you see $121,000 increase for is processing and disposal. So we have a contract with Wheelabrator. It's a consortium contract. All the towns around here went together, got a bid. Wheelabrator is the waste-to-energy plant on Route 20 as you go up the hill heading westbound. Excuse me. So that contractual increase is 3% every year. No difference. It happens every year. So that accounts for $200,000 of the 306. The remaining, $105,000 out of that line item is for recyclable materials. So again, we solicited quotes. There's only two material recovery facilities, MRFs. There's only 2 MRFs in the area that are viable for trucking from Northborough. You can't drive recyclable materials to Agawam from Northborough. It makes no sense. It'll cost you a fortune. There's one in Auburn, and there's one in Westborough. We solicited quotes from both of those facilities for how much it costs for processing. We're going forward with the most cost-effective of the two, $105 a ton. The prices came in at $126 and $105. Now, how that works is that's just if the recyclable material has $0 value, completely useless, it costs us $105 for them to get rid of it, do whatever they do with it, because it's got no value. If it has value, like cardboard had a lot of value right around the pandemic, because you were going through cardboard boxes like crazy, and that never fell off. There's still a lot of value in cardboard because people are still buying stuff from Amazon, I guess. That value comes off of that 105 number. So, if our material, so right now, our recyclable materials are in the $30 to $40 range value. It varies based on the market, and it's a commodity. But that 105 would not be 105, it would be, 75 or 70, whatever the number is. I can't project that though. We went through this China sword thing like 4 or 5 years ago, where China stopped accepting our recyclable materials. It was a great scenario. They'd bring over their container ships full of stuff we buy, and we'd fill it with our recyclable stuff and send it back. So it was a good relationship until they stopped. That's when the recyclable material market fell through the floor. It's in the process of recovering, still not there yet. For example, it costs us $84 a ton to burn trash at Wheelabrator, and $105 per ton to process recycling. So it's more to recycle. As long as there's a value to it, that number will be down. Any funds that are not utilized, meaning this thing comes in at 75 instead of 105, that goes into the fund balance for the solid waste enterprise fund, and just goes toward reduction of either tax subsidy or other expenditures. All right, we started with 2.6, went all the way up to 24.2. We literally went in the ascending order. Are there any questions on solid waste, other than Mr. Chairman?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Just wanted to know if we ever looked into doing our own dump, like some has a dump. Pickup gets to be more difficult than having the consumer bring their trash to the location.
Oh, like a transfer station?
Yeah.
Millbrae has a transfer station. I believe it's Wheelabrator, it used to be Wheelabrator's landfill, and then because Millbrae was a host community for their landfill, Wheelabrator provides them with a transfer station. That's usually what the process is. You have a landfill, you have a closed landfill, you then are permitted for a transfer station. When I was in Webster, the public works director there, we had a municipal landfill closed. Transfer station was implemented right next to it when the landfill was closed. I haven't heard of a community to implement a new transfer station without having a former landfill component associated with it. Staying on the town dump topic, one of the things you'll see in the capital plan, somebody else will see in the capital plan, but you may also, is design and feasibility design and permitting for a leaf and brush disposal area in Northborough. Like I said earlier, if your leaves and your brush have a birthday, it's considered a disposal facility. It has to be permitted through Mass DEP. There's a process to go through when you permit that. Every year, twice a year, I I break a few pencils when I have to pay the invoices to get rid of brush and leaves. It just drives me nuts. We have this huge parcel of land on Boundary Street where the dog park is. It's much bigger than the dog park, and I don't see us building a sewer plant out there anytime soon. It's a good location for a prospective leaf and brush area. It abuts a sewer plant and a river and DCR land. So it's a decent location, you know, you can't put this thing in a neighborhood generally. There are operating expenses associated with it. You have to have an LSP manage it to make sure the materials are safe and managed appropriately, turned over correctly, otherwise you're not gonna have useful product. If you manage it appropriately, after a handful of years, you have a product that's viable and usable and stuff, and has a revenue stream associated with it. There are companies out there that will get engaged to operate, maintain, and sell, basically. Sorry.
So I understand leaves you can compost, leaf you can compost, and the idea of selling the compost kind of thing. Brush, tree limbs, things like that. Where do they go?
You put them in.
And what happens to them?
They put them in a tub grinder. We
Just
use,
grind them up?
yeah, there's a big tub grinder, you put them in there, and it grinds it up into, it's not wood chips, it grinds it up more into a fibrous material, if you think of it like a mulch.
Okay.
But there's no dye in it or anything like that. So it grinds it up into something like a mulch, and it composts nicely. We can't, they used to do the tub grinding at the highway garage, but it's such a messy process, like you'll get chunks like this big that go launching like 20, 30, 40 feet. I don't wanna see one hit a car on Route 20, just 'cause we decided to save a few dollars and grind it up. But yeah, what they'll do is you dump it, that management
And
company.
those people come and pick it up, they take it to a place that does exactly that.
That's exactly right.
And then basically, the goal is to compost it.
Yep.
And then you can sell.
And then they'll sell it back to
compost.
us as a loan.
Okay, all right.
So one of our goals in the capital plan is to see if that's a viable and feasible option, and then we'd be reduced now to just catch basin cleanings and street sweepings to manage, which every community has, that's not or unique.
Well, thank you very much. Excellent job as usual.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for all you do for this town. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Very nice presentation. I really enjoyed it.
All week, Janice.
Just for us.
Really? I haven't had such a nice presentation.
One of the things we talked about last week was getting this information enough in advance that we'd have a chance to go through it and formulate some questions. And I know Jason did his best, and this week we got it 4 minutes in advance, which wasn't enough time to read through. One of the things we talked about is the idea of, this was very good, but then, you know, to digest it a little bit, if the following week, if we have some questions or things we want to pursue a little bit further, if we could ask them at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm hoping we can kind of continue that process, and that gives us, you know, this was an awful lot, and, you know, this is drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
So, you know, then, you know, if we just a little, we come up with some questions, and possibly we could feed them to Jason and Tim before, as they come up.
I was gonna say, if you wanna just
Right.
email me directly with questions you come up with as you review this before next week.
Right, so we don't have to spring them
Yeah.
next Wednesday, or next Thursday, but if we have them and feed them, and then we can kind of address them
Yeah.
before we get deeper into the, because the problem is, next week we're gonna get, there's another fire hose, so.
No, it's a great approach.
Okay.
I'd welcome to come back and after you have a chance to go through things, and if anything comes up during the process, that's fine as well.
Okay.
And I mean, going forward, do it with the next 3 departments, and on and on and on, and hope,
Right.
you know, with any, you know, the way Tim's been managing thus far, I don't see that being a problem for next year. The last minute, it's been a
This is a very
it's been a
compressed
crunch.
year,
It's
so
been a
this is
crunch
hard.
this
We're in a
year.
crunch.
Yeah, so
We got, and I would just add that we got started with one of the most complex budgets out of the gate. So
Yeah.
this one, I mean, next week's, the ones on the schedule be a lot lighter lifting to get those budgets together earlier.
just pull the
Okay.
Band-Aid right off.
All right.
DPW.
Any other questions, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for entertaining.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Interim.
We'll see.
So we're meeting next week, and is there any other business we need to discuss?
No. No other business.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to steal your
Second.
thunder.
God, no. No, I do that at everything I go to. I get tired of them kind of beating around the bush.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.
Good job, George.